Hello everyone, Gary from Lagun Engineering here again. We do produce very high quality lathes. Yes, I know it's a surprise to all of you that even our very high quality lathes do sometimes wear out parts which you need to buy and replace. If about 10-20 years down the road you find that you have used the threading capability of your Lagun lathe too much and you've worn out the threads, you can purchase a new lead screw replacement and half nut assembly from us at Republic Lagun. The way you get this out is actually very simple. Most of you should have something like this. If you don't, what you're going to do basically is you're going to find a screw that fits this, put some large washers over it, then a small washer so that you're building up a space between here and here, and then tighten that screw and that will actually drag it out. I do it the lazy man's way. I basically just have a puller and I pull that right out like that. Remove these screws here. Now, having pulled the pins, this typically tends to want to drop. You'll see that as I pull this out, now I can wiggle this and move it quite easily. Now we're just about ready to take off this plate right here, which when you're going to take this machine apart, you typically want to have this lathe supporting the rear end of this machine here from this end. We don't want to have a lot of sag here because we don't want to bend this bar or this bar. So we basically hold this machine up. We get about 2/3 of the way down and we just go ahead and lock the half nut. Locking the half nut is basically what we do and what we're going to use to extract the entire assembly, lead screw assembly, from this machine. So we basically have this loose. This is our large nut that we use to tighten up the thrust bearings. The thrust bearings are very important for your accuracy on your machine because if you have this too tight, the lead screw can't turn and you shear the pin. If you have this assembly not tight enough, then this lead screw tends to move back and forth and you don't get a good accurate thread on the part you're going to be threading. So it's very important that you actually tighten this up snug enough to actually take up the distance in our thrust bearing, and then you tighten this thread right here to hold it in position because you're not going to crank this up to hold it. That's too tight. You're actually going to leave it free enough to move so that this bearing race moves freely on the shaft between the balls that are in here. And then there's another set of bearings on the inside of this, and basically this comes out, taking this cap off here and giving it a gentle nudge. You can actually push it over. If we want, we can actually show you how from this direction right in here, I've locked the lead screw nut and I can actually move it in and out. You use this right here with the lead screw nut closed to actually draw that out of the machine as a complete unit. We'll move over to the other side and I'll show you the mechanism that actually pulls that out of the machine. Okay, so we just went through the entire disassembly of the rear end of this machine in order to extract the lead screw for replacement. This is the spring and cup assembly. If you can see real tight in here, you'll see that there's a keyway. When you're reassembling it, you have to be very careful that you push those in. And you know, to be quite honest with you, it's kind of a real pain in the ass to get those keys to stay in while you're assembling this unit. But don't worry, you'll get it. Just do it slowly, take your time, and it will come out. So we lock our nut, half nuts down, and we just use the lathe. And you'll see that as I come back out, you'll see this move. That is that lead screw coming out of the slots with the key. So once you get that out, you're going to basically open the nuts and slowly draw that entire lead screw out the back. Now you've got it. Assembling it with the new screw is basically just keeping the parts in line, putting them all back together, closing the nut, pushing it back into the slot. The spring goes in, locks it up, reassemble the back end, and you've got the whole machine with the replaced lead screw, and you're good to go until the next time you have an accident. This is Gary from Lagun signing off.